questions. I do want to take just a minute to thank a few people, thank our administration for giving us the tools to get out and travel and host and house these kids that decided to come to Virginia Tech. It takes a whole village of people to recruit and sign a recruiting class. I want to thank everybody that helped when these kids were on campus. We actually touch almost every aspect of campus in these kids' time here. And it takes a whole bunch of people in a bunch of different categories helping us out to show off Virginia Tech and the Blacksburg area. And then lastly, the coaches and their families. A tremendous amount of sacrifice goes into recruiting. Much has been said and written about travel and time away from home and all that sort of stuff, and it certainly takes some sacrifice by our coaches and their spouses and families. So I certainly want to appreciate or thank them for that. I'm awfully excited about this class. We built upon the work of Coach Beamer and his staff. As many of you all heard me say in the ACC network teleconference, we basically divided out that we had some immediate needs in terms of midterm kids, high school kids that were graduating high school a semester early, and that we needed to reach out to immediately because their decision was looming at an accelerated timetable. So we addressed those needs. 7 high school kids, and then added 2 junior college kids to that list. And then over the Christmas break, took a little stock in the kids that we were going to sign today, or that you all were going to get introduced to the first time. Did a great job holding on to the kids that were committed, and added a few other pieces of the puzzle, and also turned our eye towards next year to make sure that we do a great job 365 days from now. We still will have a high priority on the state of Virginia. I think that will continue to see. You'll continue to see that through my tenure here. I'm proud of the kids that decided to stay close to home and play for Virginia Tech. We obviously had some needs, specifically position-wise, that we needed to address. On the defensive side of the ball, it was a little more even class. If you just look at the distribution, 4 defensive backs, 3 linebackers, 2 defensive linemen, a little bit more even distribution there. On the offensive side of the ball, it's a little more loaded up. You won't see any tight ends or running backs just because of our numbers. Obviously, we needed to sign some wide receivers. We still have room. We actually have room for some more to reach our goal number, but I was a little hesitant to get too many of those guys in one class. If you're not careful, 3 or 4 years from now, you're going to be sitting in the exact same situation. You've got no class dispersion. So we'll make sure we spread those guys out. It's important to establishing some consistency of play. Obviously, there's 2 quarterbacks that are here now, and then several offensive linemen that hopefully we can go put away in the weight room for several years and then break out here in a couple years and y'all get a chance to watch them play. But with that being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all may have. Shoot.
You said you looked at the class, you identified some needs. What were the things that you thought were lacking and what you were kind of inheriting, and who did you target and get in those particular spots? Well,
I mean, we're sitting there, obviously on the offensive side of the ball, we need to continue to add some depth at the offensive line, and we had 1 quarterback commitment. We went ahead and got Gerard to continue to add some depth and create some good competition there immediately. At wide receiver, we had 3 midterm kids already coming in. And then obviously Phil Patterson was a huge piece to what we wanted to get accomplished today. So on the defense, like I said, on the defensive side of the ball, when you look at those guys, and we wanted to keep some of the local kids here that we signed in the secondary and at linebacker, and then just kind of pick and choose which guys we needed to fill each spot.
You mentioned the abbreviated recruiting calendar you really had to work with here. How challenging was that to sort of form a relationship months that a lot of schools had for 2 or 3 years before?
Well, obviously that's a challenge, but I do think part of the reason we were able to keep it together so well is some of the continuity. You know, quite honestly, when you walk into a high school in the state of Virginia and Bud Foster is walking in next to you, you have instant credibility, and I think that played a huge role in us keeping the class together and maybe accelerating those relationships just a little bit.
Was that difficult for getting guys that you targeted late in the process that you were kind of getting at schools?
Well, you always, you look at it and, there's some guys you come on late and, sometimes those work out, sometimes they don't. But, the best way to do it is to continue to forge those relationships over a period of time. And, and that's what we've got great examples of right now.
That was Gerard, was a guy that you did have some connection to when you were at. So is there anybody else in this class who added that you had known before and recruited before and thought would be a good fit here?
Dimitri Moore is the other one that we had some contact with before, but looking at the rest of them, that's it.
You went the JUCO route for a few guys, and I'm wondering if part of that was those were areas where you felt like were particular need areas for you. You wanted some experience in those spots right away. Have you got that experience, or is that a route you go in the future?
Oh, I don't anticipate it being a big part of what we do. I think these were special scenarios or special situations, pretty strong academic kids that we felt like could handle Virginia Tech, first of all. So I don't anticipate, I'm not saying we'll never do it, but I don't anticipate it being a large part of our philosophy. We'd like to build this thing through the high school ranks. But Gerard was somebody, like we said, that we knew a little bit about his background, and same with Dimitri. So it made it a little bit easier, I guess, transition. But in the long run, I don't anticipate it being a huge part of what we're doing.
You guys signed 5 offensive linemen in this class. Is that an ideal number each year? And what's your ideal number of linemen that you'd like to have in the program?
That's pretty heavy, I think. In general terms, I think it's probably usually around 4, maybe sometimes as low as 3. It depends. Guys get redshirted and guys play, and then their classes get spread out a little bit. But off the top of my head, I can't remember what our target number is. Just off the top of my head, it's around 18, somewhere in there. I think it is 18. So. You'd like to not be so heavy in one spot on year to year. You'd like for it to look a little bit more like the defensive side of the ball does this year, where it's you basically sign an offense and you sign a defense, kind of moving forward.
You guys had a pretty big number early in all these. How much does that help you coach in class, get these guys on the field, to be able to have them so much ahead of everybody else?
Well, I think it's really big for us at wide receiver. I mean, it's big for Jimmy Taylor and Khalil Ladler as well on the defensive side of the ball. But wide receiver, we're not incredibly deep right now. Really only 2 guys that played meaningful reps last year. We would like to play a bunch of guys to move at the tempo that we'd like to go. I don't know how much or how little of that we'll be able to do or how fast those guys will come along, but it is big for them to be here in the spring to get a handle on what's going on and where to line up and all those sort of things to maybe give them a little bit of a leg up, give them 15 extra practices heading into fall camp.
Coach, do you expect to have to redshirt any of these kids that are coming in right now, or is that down the line of the ways?
I'd say that's way down the line. We'll worry about that next fall. I anticipate that we will redshirt some, but I haven't even seen our own team practice yet. So I don't know. We'll address it in the fall and see kind of how it goes.
But you were reportedly involved with some kids who were what people call committed. As a coach, how do you decide, who was still fair game in the recruitment, who was actually locked in on the school?
Yeah, we ask them. You know, I mean, I think that's a pretty simple way to do it. If they don't want to be recruited, then we absolutely won't. We'll go through the high school coach and the player. And I think that's, when we have guys commit to us, I ask them to not commit unless they're ready to sever ties with everybody else. And so if they want to be recruited, then we will. If they don't, then we won't.
Coach, you mentioned you've had a chance to, even though it's February 2016 now, look at 2017 already. What are the biggest areas that you guys are starting to assemble under board as you look at signing?
Well, we'll sign a little bit of everything, hopefully. I mean, we'll probably be back in the tight end and the running back business for sure on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, we don't have a particularly large class next year. I was just looking at it. I think we only have 10 seniors next year, 10 scholarship seniors, if I'm not mistaken. So it won't be an incredibly large class unless we have a little bit of attrition, which I'm sure we will. Every program does. So hopefully our numbers will be a little more balanced, and we'll be able to balance it out a little bit more and kind of have a little bit more even distribution throughout the class. But I think we'll need a little of something, a little of everything next year.
Coach, when I talked to you last month, I know you guys hadn't really got the recruiting territories down, and you have a broad area, I guess, now with some of the areas you guys had commitments. Is that something you guys been talking more about as far as having guys in certain areas, or is it that important to have guys in
No, I do think it's important that first of all, everybody on the staff have a piece of Virginia. If we're going to emphasize this state, then I think everybody needs to have a hold or a stake in it. So every one of our assistant coaches have a piece of Virginia, and then branch basically, in general terms, down the East Coast. And but we will still organize it by areas, but then that'll lead into position-specific recruiting. I want those kids to develop a relationship with the recruiting coach, with the coordinator on that side of the ball, and ultimately with their position coach and obviously the head coach.
Obviously, at this level, there's competition for all these kids, but were there one or two that stood out for you in terms of the competition, the battle to kind of get them here?
Oh, I don't know. Nothing in particular. Each one of those kids is a story and chose Virginia Tech for their own individual reason, and that's, to me, that's the key to the recruiting, is figuring out ultimately what's most important to that young man, or in turn, that young man figuring out what's most important to him and making his decision based on that. But if there are no big surprises, then I'm really, really happy, and that's why I'm awfully happy today. Everything that was supposed to happen did happen. Our coaches did a great job cultivating those relationships and staying on top of those guys, and our kids that were committed to Virginia Tech were committed to Virginia Tech, and they all came through. So it was a pretty relatively easy, or stress-free, I should say, day. Accumulation of a lot of hard work on the count of a lot of people. But by no means do you get to throw your feet up on the desk and throw your hands behind your head and light up a cigar. I mean, you gotta roll your sleeves up and continue to work.
Last one in the back.
Coach, you've talked about there's such an emphasis on in-state recruiting in Virginia. I know it's only been a little over 2 months. How do you feel like you guys have done in that 2 months, and where do you feel like you still need to do some work in-state?
Well, I think we've first of all been received really well. I think the high school coaches across the state appreciate the way we handle our business, or the way we handled our business through this signing period. I think they'll continue to develop that. We'll do some things to reach out to them throughout the spring to make sure that we're accessible, so we can continue to develop those relationships. I anticipate them doing nothing but getting better, because I do think they will appreciate the way we try and handle recruiting. You can always get better. better. You can always continue to develop those things, and we're going to continue to get in there and battle for the best kids in this state. I think we made some headway here. It's the start. It's the foundation of what we're building. It's the very first step in the next generation of Virginia Tech football, and I'm excited for the ongoing chapters.
Thank you, Coach.
Good.